Pickett in the shotgun. Najee to his right. He sends Robinson out as a split man to the right side. And the give is right down the middle to Najee Harris for a 4-yard untouched into the end zone. Touchdown.
What a great run. What a great drive. A nice mix of running the ball, just rock piling it inside, chipping away, pile driving people, and then you set it up with this nice little give to the inside, and Najee just cuts it back behind the center. Beautiful job. The Hogs are moving.
Our bigs up front on offense did a really good job of kind of controlling it. I thought we were able to run the ball effectively, and that's a good posture to play from.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. I'm Missi Matthews. The Steelers are now 6-3, finishing their 3-game homestand thanks to a 23-19 win over the Green Bay Packers. We have a lot to talk about to break down this win before they travel to Cleveland on Sunday. Let's welcome in our panelists today. We have Dale Lolley of Steelers.com and Steelers Nation Radio, and our good friend Dave Dameshek, host of the -3 podcast and NFL Gut Check, with our good friend, too, Ryan Shazier. Dave, thanks for joining us. Dale, we'll start with you. We were talking a little bit about this offline. It's never pretty, but the Steelers are defying the odds, and they keep winning ugly.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the bottom line, Missy. Do you win the game? The stats and everything, that's all kind of window dressing. There are a lot of teams out there that had more yardage, all the pretty stuff out there. Everybody can look and say, well, my fantasy team won. The Steelers are not that. They turn every single game into a rock fight, and they play the game the way they want the game to be played. And, Mike Tomlin told this team earlier in the week, we're going to come out and we're going to run the football this week against the Green Bay Packers, and we're going to stick with the run game. And the team, the offensive line in particular, that's what they want to hear. That's what the running backs want to hear. They thought that they could run the ball against this team. They went out and they did it, and they stuck with it. And, even when they got down, late in the third quarter, they came out and continued to run the football, and they just choked the life out of the Green Bay Packers.
Wait, you guys are saying that running the football and playing good D is sustainable? I don't think so, Jens. I don't understand the cynicism about the 6-3 team. Yes, warts and all. I see what's going on. But the notion, the ongoing thought that this is just random luck, all a big fluke. It keeps breaking the one team's way in all these one-score games, whether it's the Ravens or Browns at the high end or at the low end of these bottom feeder teams, these lower middle class teams. It always ends up being, in these one-score games, the same team winning. Dumb luck, I guess. Good for you, Coach T.
Dale, last week we saw Broderick Jones take over at right tackle. They had 166 yards rushing. He said, not enough, we need 200. They do so this week against the Packers. Is it as simple as him joining that O-line group, or what's working so well for them?
I think that's definitely part of it, Missy, but I also think that they've decided to really stick to the run. If you look at the last 2 weeks, it's been more runs than passes in each of these two games. Yesterday it was 36 runs and 29 passes. So you're going to, if you're doing that and you're staying on the field, I think that's a key part of it as well. And I think that they've kind of changed up how they're running the football. We're not seeing as many. As much trying to get Najee Harris to the outside. Run him straight ahead. Let him get downhill. You want to try to run somebody outside? Run Jaylen Warren outside. Now, maybe that's going to be a tell at some point. I don't know. Nobody's figured it out yet, because both of these guys have been highly successful. And, I just think it's a mentality. We saw it start to kick in at the midway point of last year, where they really ran the football for 146 yards per game over the stretch, that second half stretch. It's taken them a little time to get their footing coming into this year. They seem to have it now.
Dave, it's November football. There's 2 AFC North games coming up. Then we go to December football. This smells like keep running the ball, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw it, as Dale just mentioned, of course. I don't know if people have amnesia about the way the second half of 22 went, but, 3-6 at this exact same spot last year, and then things took off, thanks largely to being able to run the ball. Andy Weidel comes in to help out Omar Khan and company and loads up promptly at both sides of the line of scrimmage. We'll get to the defense, I'm sure, with Keanu Benton and how he's popping right now. But as you bring in those pieces, as it turns out, Broderick Jones is a difference maker on the offensive line. And now you're seeing the results of that. I think, you may not be overwhelmed. You're not watching Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs here. That doesn't mean that they're not playing a successful, sustainable brand of pro football right now.
We saw Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren give props to their O-line yesterday. Here's what quarterback Kenny Pickett had to say also.
Yeah, we were getting, pretty good yards per carry, even when they were deciding to do that. Thought some of the play action things we did off it was good early. Gave us a chance to have some one-on-one shots too with George and Tay down the field. Wish we hit on a couple more. Would have been some more explosive plays for us. But overall, the way we were running the ball, we felt like we had a lot of confidence in that.
All right, we know Pittsburgh, they like to see running the ball. We know the offensive line likes it. Is the Steelers' offense, though, lacking some splash plays, Dale?
Well, I mentioned to our colleague Bob Labriola yesterday, as the Steelers were running the ball like that was like Yinzer crack. That's exactly what they wanted to see. The explosives, I think, when you're running the ball like that, you're not going to see a ton of that kind of stuff because I thought that they were really playing it kind of close to the vest. They're not turning the football over. And, the more chances you take down the field, the more you open up that risk. When they did need to have that big play, they hit the play to George Pickens. Unfortunately, Calvin Austin is called for the pick that was not really a pick. They just kind of ran into each other, and that kind of stuff happens. So that stuff is still there. They did it the week before when they needed it. He got the 32-yard pass down the sideline to Deontay Johnson. So the capability is there to make those plays. But right now, it's all about protecting the football and not losing the game. Allow the other team to make those big mistakes. And that's what happened yesterday. Jordan Love, he blinked in those big moments and threw the ball away twice.
That's exactly right. And, again, with Pickett and how he's playing, and believe me, there's some basic throws that he's missing along the way. Those are problematic, obviously, but given the premise of the way Tomlin is approaching it, not just this season, but the last half decade, and I keep pointing to that, you can get frustrated. I guess it depends if you're a glass half full or half empty kind of Steelers fan here. But yes, you would like to see them with more splash, and they definitely need that. But the goal is not, high 20s, 30 points a game. If the Steelers can merely get to roughly 24 points a game, they are going to announce themselves at a different level. So we can wring our hands about whether or not they could shoot it out with the Chargers or the Bengals or otherwise. But the last 2 years, when they get to merely 20 points, they are now 10-2. That is a sustainable formula. I don't know what else to tell you. It may not mirror the point totals that you're seeing with the teams who you swoon for in summertime, but the reality is 6-3 has them positioned awfully well right now as they head into the back-to-back in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, you're right, David. When they've scored 22 points per game and there were 6 wins. It's around 10 points per game in the losses. So, do the math. If they get to 20, they're probably going to win the game. I mean, that's just the way that they're playing.
And I will say, too, and, obviously injuries are a matter of luck, for the most part. But if they can get a break from the football gods high in the sky, and they can get some core guys, the vision for Mike Tomlin, and I say this a lot, and I know it's a very specific example to cite, but if you think about week 1, 2022, that is, in my estimation, what Tomlin wants the games to look like. Ugly them up. Remember, they went into Cincinnati, turned them over a few times. You're not going to dominate in 2023 the way the 76 Steelers did, or any of those examples from the last millennium. You're not going to repress NFL offenses given the rules to 9 points a game. What you need to do, though, is create defensive splash. Turn over the other team once or 3 times extra a game. Give your team an extra possession, and that is a path to winning ball. I think if you remember Tomlin celebrating in the locker room after that game that day, it indicated to me that this isn't just winning. This is winning by the method that he thinks is the best path for the team to win games. And I think that stands true as we go into the second half of this season.
And
you're right, Dave. If you look at it, the top two defenses in the league going into this weekend, their game ended up 33-31 on Sunday. No, I don't know that any of the AFC North teams want to play that way. I think they all want to ugly it up, and that one turned into kind of it got away from them both yesterday. That's not how they want to play.
Well, right. Dave, you were talking about that Cincinnati game week 1 last year. Coach Tomlin gifted the entire team some black Air Force One, saying, you know, we're the underdogs. It's going to be a street fight. And I think they are regaining that confidence and that mentality as they push into the second half of the season. But we talked about the 2 upcoming games, so let's take a look right now at the AFC North standings. And yes, it's if the playoffs started today and, you know, this and that, but this is the division that has just been killing it lately. You go through coming into this weekend, they had all 4 teams were undefeated in 3 out of 4 weeks. They just keep stacking wins, and luckily for the Steelers yesterday, Dale, they took care of business, but then some things they probably were in favor of happening also happened.
Yeah, you know, that loss by the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday is a big one. We knew going into the weekend that either the Ravens or Browns were going to lose. But the Bengals losing, not only was that a loss for Cincinnati, they're now 1-4 in AFC games this year. That's tied with, I believe, the Titans for the worst record in the AFC this year in terms of interconference games. So they're in a little bit of trouble there. They're going to lose a lot of tiebreakers if they don't win the division. So, and if you look at their schedule, they still have to go to Kansas City. They have to go to Jacksonville. They have to come to Pittsburgh, folks. That's going to happen as well. So there's some tough ones in there for the Cincinnati Bengals, and they've been stumbling and struggling. I mean, I thought going into the weekend they were playing the best football out of all the teams, but you take T. Higgins out of that equation. You have Jamar Chase a little banged up, and suddenly it doesn't look quite the same. And on any given week, in every week in the NFL, anybody can win, including the Steelers in a close game each week.
It matters, obviously, as we see the inside linebacker position for the Steelers get decimated by injury, but Hendrickson is a major loss. You're going to lose players in pro football in the 21st century. There's no way around that. But the trick is to not lose the key pieces. I call it the Jenga theory. If you remove the wrong piece, the whole thing is going to implode. That's what happened in the first half of 22 when TJ Watt sat down. If Tomlin's vision can come to full fruition now, vision fruition, that almost rhymes. If he gets Watt and Cam and Minka, plus the way Benton's starting to pop now and the rest of that defensive front and Joey Porter Jr. doing what he's doing on the back end, now they are going to be a very tough out the rest of the way. And, you know, that's the one factor. And as you say, Dale, the other thing is that people may not be looking at, but the conference standings are significant, as are the North standings. The Steelers are the only team right now unblemished in the North. If they can split between these 2 Ohio road trips here, they're going to be in a really nice spot to try and take the division and certainly to get a playoff spot. The big question is, again, back to my glass half full, half empty thought, is it good that the Bengals lost and the Texans won, because that dents the Steelers' wild card chances? But if you have a higher goal in mind, the division title, well, then that was great news that the Bengals lost at home the way they did.
And this is why everybody
Dave.
loves
Just
the
win
NFL.
The division. That's all.
Yeah.
Just win the division. In fact, if you look at what's going to happen this week, so we got Cincinnati playing Baltimore this week.
Thursday night.
If the Bengals win that game on Thursday night, and you know, you look at it, Baltimore's all kinds of banged up as well. If Cincinnati wins that game, Sunday's Steelers-Browns game is for first place in the AFC North.
But dude, they're no good though. They don't you know they can't beat nobody? By the way, that is the other thing I like to point to. Who is it that we're talking about that these Steelers can't beat? I don't want to play the Chiefs in Arrowhead in January because they have Patrick Mahomes and they have Andy Reid. And the Dolphins are scary the way they're playing and kind of steamrolling all defenses, or most of them. But after that, who is so overwhelming that, dude, you're kidding yourself if you think this team could play with any. Who can't they play with in the AFC? Maybe with possible exceptions that I just cited at the very top of the standings. After that, the Ravens are unbeatable. We already beat them once. What are we talking about? That there are other juggernauts that the Steelers couldn't dream of getting past. We've already gotten past a few of them.
I'll say this too, Dave. I ran the numbers on this last week. If you take that 70-point monster game out of the equation for the Miami Dolphins, they're averaging 26 points per game. I mean, it's not like there's some kind of juggernaut here. When they've played a team with a winning record this year, they average about 17 points per game. So,
yeah, and I do suspect that maybe you could push them around a little bit too.
They're a little soft up front.
And, I know it's weirdly unsatisfying. Maybe, Dale, like you say, you're onto something with the fantasy numbers and how we swoon over those. And the attrition of, bully ball doesn't really reveal itself until late third, fourth quarter action and all that. And it's nip and tuck and you're not blowing anybody out. So it's vaguely unsatisfying. But it is, in fact, a winning formula. How do I know? 6-3 is how I know.
All right, guys. Well, part of the reason the Steelers have been winning is their defense, and we're going to talk about that after the break, including a milestone for TJ Watt. You're watching The Extra Point, presented by Microsoft Surface. We'll be right back.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Green Bay trailing by 4. 2nd and 9 at the Pittsburgh 14. A run look, but a shotgun snap. And back is Love. He looks, he waits, he fires for the end zone. And it's broken up. Intercepted! Keanu Neal has it up the sideline. He took it away from the receiver up over the 15. Watson couldn't find the range, and Keanu Neal said, I'll take that out of the air. Another big play for this Pittsburgh Steelers. Unbelievable defense.
Welcome back to The Extra Point, presented by Microsoft Surface. Patrick Peterson, we knew when the Steelers signed him this offseason, Dale, that they wanted his veteran experience. We saw some of that yesterday, not just that play, but also blocking the extra point as well. And this defense has that bend but don't break mentality that's keeping the Steelers in games.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, the Packers were 1 for 5 yesterday in the red zone, including coming away with no points on those final 2 trips. And Pat Peterson was a big part of that. If you look back, that block extra point comes into play at the end of the game. The Packers maybe just playing for a field goal there instead of having to go for a touchdown if Peterson doesn't block that kick. And then the heads up play that he made, knowing that he had the safety help over the top there or coming in beside him to tip that ball to the inside part of the field there. He said, look, if I'd have known that the ball was coming that quickly, I would have gotten both hands up and intercepted it myself. But I knew I had help there, so I just tried to tip that back inside. And, Keanu Benton picks it off and, well, turns into a big play, turns into a game-saving play.
Yeah, I think that, Pat Pete starting to emerge as they're trying to, it feels to me, Dale, correct me if I'm wrong, it feels to me that they're trying to play into Pat Pete's strengths a little bit more and moving him around a little bit more like a chess piece rather than locking him into the outside. Overall, it feels to me a little bit like the back end is struggling without the speed of Minkah, but hopefully that's about to be solved with Minkah's return as soon as Thursday night.
Yeah, he's the eraser, Minkah Fitzpatrick is. And, a lot of the stuff that Green Bay hit down the middle of the field and some of the deep stuff that they connected on yesterday probably doesn't happen if Minkah Fitzpatrick is out there. I think 1 or 2 of those, might be either broken up or picked off. So, I think, Jordan Love knew that and kind of threw down the field a little bit with impunity in this game. And that won't happen with Minkah Fitzpatrick out there. And you're exactly right about Patrick Peterson. He said when he joined the Steelers at his opening press conference, he's not a guy who's going to go out there and run, 50 plays with Jamar Chase man-to-man defense anymore. That's just not who he is. But he is a guy who knows how to make plays if you put him in the right positions, and they've been doing that. And he's made some big plays for them this year.
The bad news in terms of the Steelers defense, guys, last week they lost Cole Holcomb. This week, Quan Alexander. Dave, how do they overcome this at a position that they were touting, that they added so much depth and so much veteran presence to when they revamped this room?
Yeah, it's a real shame. Obviously, they've been chasing that solution since our guy Shazier, 6 years ago at this point, and Holcomb really did feel like maybe the best answer that we've seen since number 50. But as I say, injuries are unavoidable. Coach T with the standard is the standard, next man up and all of that. I think we all understand deep down that the reason one guy is getting more snaps than the other is because he's perceived to be a more talented difference maker at pro football. Nevertheless, the way Coach T wants to play it, you do want some wheels at that inside linebacker spot. I don't know that they have the answer in the building, and I don't know that the answer is out there. Fortunately, though, they're positioned well, as I said a couple of minutes ago. If they can get Minka back into the mix, you have not just difference makers, but you have among the best at their spots in Minka, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. I don't want to invoke Keanu Benton at this level, but some guys that are really breaking through consistently at all three levels, and that's an advantage that the Steelers have over most teams that they're going to see, despite the absence there. I saw some people throwing a name around. I'll just throw one out there. Rashaan Evans. The wheels ain't there, but the vet savvy is. At least, it wouldn't be unfamiliar to him to drop him in there. Maybe that's a place you look, but I don't think there's a great solution existing out there on the waiver wire, right?
No, not really. And
trade deadline
this is a situation. Yeah, this is a situation, Missy, where they're back to where they kind of been playing the last few years. So it's not like it's something new to them. It's not like they have to figure out, hey, how do we play when we're not quite as good at inside linebacker? Well, they've been playing that way for the last few years, so they have some defensive ways to scheme around that. So I would expect to see more of that. But there are going to be times where you're just not going to be good enough at inside linebacker, and you got to live with it.
Is it Keanu Neal? Is that the answer? If he's right, to move him up and be a little slight, but I mean he presents as a relatively heavy DB there. Maybe you can get by with him in stretches. I would bet that's.
Yeah, I mean certainly that's kind of the move they made yesterday. After they lost Quan Alexander. When you saw the nickel and dime packages, it was Keanu Neal playing linebacker. And he has a history of doing that. So that's one option that you have there. Obviously, Mark Robinson, is a good rundown guy. But, do you want him and Elandon Roberts being your every down linebackers? Probably not.
Well, give us the scoop there, Dale. What is it? Mark Robinson, a year ago, people were very excited about the athleticism. We thought there would be some sort of a breakthrough. And then the number of guys come in from the outside, as we talk about, Holcomb, Roberts, et cetera. But where is Mark Robinson, and why is there reluctance to drop him into the lineup? Where are the shortcomings there?
You're talking about a guy at this point has now been playing inside linebacker, off-ball linebacker for 2.5 years. He was a running back until his final year of college. So they drafted him more on what he could be and what he could turn into, rather than what he was at that moment. He's great against the run. He will get downhill in a hurry and hit the hole, reads it like a running back. But, young linebackers in the NFL, offensive coordinators, the schemers, and the quarterbacks are so good that they will manipulate those guys to no end. And, you get you taking false steps, and then they're throwing the ball over your head. And it's just little things like that. And, hopefully, I think the hope was that he would learn from Elandon Roberts, from Quan Alexander, from Cole Holcomb a little bit more how to play linebacker. Maybe he has at this point. We just don't know yet. He hasn't played enough to find out. So, but that's going to happen. We're going to find out real quick.
Good news in terms of injuries. Pat Freiermuth can come off IR, and Minka Fitzpatrick never went on it. So Coach Tomlin has his press conference tomorrow. I'm sure he's going to be asked about those. But TJ Watt now has 88 career sacks, past his brother JJ for the second most in NFL history in their first 100 games. He's not even at 100 games yet. And guys, usually we would give TJ Watt the game ball. There's been games this year that he deserved it. But I'm curious, I asked people on Twitter who gets their game ball for the win over the Packers, and Jalen and Najee in the O-line by far took away in terms of what people really thought.
Yeah,
I'll be a
argue with
hipster.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dale.
Can't argue with that. I mean, those guys played well and were a big part of the offense. And I would lean towards Patrick Peterson, though. I mean, that blocked extra point was huge, and the play he made in the end zone was a game saver. Yeah, I mean, it's just 2 plays, but they were 2 big ones.
True. How about this one? Since he was in the eye of the storm 3 weeks ago, and now people have chosen a new target, who is the quarterback. But how about Matt Canada? We haven't heard many chants and otherwise of late. Doing a pretty good job there. You're starting to see the vision and what those. You hear Tomlin and Canada talk about setting them up for the long term over the 60 minutes and what they're putting on tape for next week and beyond. And what those first drives kind of look like. You kind of can see how those plans, running it there in the first possession, then sets up some play action later in the game and all of that. I'll be a hipster and throw in Keanu Benton. A catchy phrase that you hear fans throwing around these days is inside pressure. And I think we all became aware of that because of Aaron Donald over the last 10 years and how effective that can be. As it turns out, no human being, including Tom Brady, likes a sizable human being running fast directly in his face. That's even worse than being terrorized from the perimeter by TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. But Keanu Benton is in guys' face. He's whipping guys on the interior there. That is an advantage that's really hard to overstate, I feel like, in the way the NFL's going these days.
All right,
Yeah, that's a good one, TJ.
Well, I'm going to agree with Pat P because he made it possible for us not to go to overtime yesterday. So I thought we'll give him props for that too. So 3 good things by Pat P yesterday. Guys, so much fun to catch up with you and to break down a Victory Monday win for the Steelers. Thanks for joining me, and thanks everybody at home for watching the Extra Point presented by Microsoft Surface. Have a great night, and we'll see you here next week.